All right, so today we're diving into a name you might not know, but probably should.
Chase Oliver.
Chase Oliver.
That's right.
Libertarian Party's candidate for president.
Yeah, and we're really going deep today using his Wikipedia page, his campaign website, and even some news articles about his campaign.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of people probably first heard his name during that whole Georgia Senate race.
2022.
Yeah, Warnock versus Walker.
Nail biter.
Oh my goodness, and he's right there in the middle.
2% of the vote.
Yeah. As a libertarian, and people were like, is he a spoiler?
Right. Is this what tipped the scales?
Yeah, but instead of shying away from that, he kind of went, okay, I'm gonna use this.
Yeah, he leaned in.
Okay, so he goes from relative unknown to presidential nominee like that.
Yeah, for the Libertarian Party, pretty impressive.
So we see that trajectory, but what does he actually stand for? So I was on his Wikipedia page, and it says he's a traditional libertarian, but it also uses the term classically liberal. And I don't know, it feels like we need to define our terms here a little bit.
Yeah, classical liberal can mean a lot of different things depending on who you ask. But especially in the context of the U.S., it's this emphasis on individual rights, limited government, free markets.
Right.
And then you take that, and then traditional libertarianism takes it even further.
Yeah.
Minimal government intervention in pretty much all areas of life.
So even less government than your typical, I don't know, small government conservative.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it'll be interesting to see where he falls on that spectrum, because he seems to really embrace those core principles, but also sometimes takes a more pragmatic approach.
Interesting. Okay. So his website.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's a lot.
It was like every other line I'm like highlighting.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the economy.
Okay.
He wants to cut federal spending back to like pre-pandemic levels.
Huge cuts.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to think about how much the government's role in the economy has just expanded, especially since 2020.
Yeah.
And he sees that as government overreach. He wants to slash taxes, reduce regulations, even get rid of like entire government agencies.
Yeah, he even mentions like ending the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Which, I'll be honest, I don't even know if I fully understand what that means.
It's a big one. So think about it this way. The Federal Reserve is like the referee for the U.S. economy.
Oh, yeah.
It controls the money supply, sets those interest rates we always talk about.
Right.
And they're trying to keep things stable.
Right.
And Oliver, along with a lot of libertarians, would say that that is giving the government way too much control. They want a system where the market dictates the value of money, not, government bureaucrats.
So completely hands off.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
It's a radical departure from how we do things now.
Big time. Okay, so that's the economy. But then you look at something like healthcare.
Yeah.
He wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
He wants to move to this direct primary care system.
Basically take the government totally out of healthcare.
That's a big shift. What does that even look like?
So the idea is you pay a monthly fee directly to your doctor, you get your basic care covered, and then you shop around for other services. So if you need to see a specialist, you're looking for the best price. If you need surgery,
I mean, I can see the appeal of that, but it also feels like a really big adjustment.
Definitely. And that's where that tension comes in.
Yeah.
Individual liberty versus collective responsibility.
Right.
Because this is going to come up again and again when you're looking at Oliver's policies.
Right, because it's not just the economy and healthcare.
Not even a little bit.
This is education, too.
Right.
He wants to abolish the Department of Education.
He is against federal student loans, believes education should be handled entirely at the state and local level.
Wow. Almost like hitting reset on the whole system.
Basically.
Which, again, very,
Controversial.
yeah, a lot of pushback, I would imagine.
Especially when you think about, would that increase inequality?
Yeah, absolutely.
Leave certain communities even further behind.
Okay, so we've talked about the economy, healthcare, education, and I know that there are some hot button issues that we have to get to.
Always.
So let's talk about like the war on drugs and his ideas on criminal justice reform.
So he has called for the decriminalization of all drugs, wants to repeal the Controlled Substances Act. Huge
So not even just legalizing marijuana. This is a complete
overhaul
Yeah.
of how we approach drugs in society.
Wow. And then on top of that, he wants to dismantle what he calls the prison industrial complex. I mean, he's talking about ending qualified immunity, getting rid of mandatory minimum sentences, even abolishing the death penalty at the federal level.
So these are big systemic changes that he's advocating for?
Yeah. I mean, he wants to really shake things up.
For sure.
And that seems to go into his foreign policy positions, too.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So he's a non-interventionist. He wants to end foreign aid, close those U.S. military bases that are overseas, and drastically cut the military budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's a far cry from that, world police role that the U.S. has often played.
Right.
And he just fundamentally disagrees with that. He thinks that U.S. involvement in these conflicts does more harm than good, and that we should be putting our own interests first.
So it seems like the overarching theme here is smaller government, less involvement, and a focus on individual liberty.
Yeah, I mean, whether you agree with his views or not, you have to admit it's a very different perspective.
For sure. It's definitely thought-provoking. So you would think that with all of this, that he might be kind of this outsider, this fringe candidate.
Yeah.
But then some interesting things have happened that make it seem like maybe there's something bigger going on here.
Right.
And I think you're talking about the whole Colorado Libertarian Party thing.
It's a head scratcher.
I don't understand.
Okay, so you've got the Libertarian Party's nominee for president.
Yeah.
And then the Colorado branch is basically like, we're going to go with someone else.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
And they chose RFK Jr., which, I mean, it feels like we need a whole other deep dive just for that.
A whole other episode. It's unusual, to say the least, for a state party to just completely reject the national nominee.
Yeah.
Makes you think, like, what's going on in the Libertarian Party itself?
Yeah, what didn't they like about him, did they say?
So some of the concerns were that he's not going to connect with voters outside, that core libertarian base.
Okay.
Like, are his views just too far out there? And then some people were even worried that it might hurt the Libertarian Party in the long run.
Okay, so they're thinking about growth and longevity.
Exactly.
No, which makes sense.
Yeah, but it's not like RFK Jr. is,
A traditional libertarian.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's interesting. And then on top of that, you've got Trump shows up at the Libertarian National Convention.
Right.
Doesn't even want the nomination. It's just, I don't know. It feels like he's attracting all this attention.
It's very strange, yeah. So, okay, we've gone from spoiler candidate in Georgia to the actual presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party. We've talked about his platform, which is, I mean, some might even call it radical, but at least it's consistent.
Yeah, he's got a vision.
He does, yeah. And his campaign is attracting all these big names, and it's causing all this controversy, and it's very fascinating to watch.
It's a lot. So, big picture, I think it says a lot about how people are feeling about the two-party system.
Okay.
Right. There's a lot of dissatisfaction out there. People want something different. And he's tapping into that. And, whether his solutions are the right ones, I think that's up for debate. But he's forcing us to confront these big questions about what the role of government should be, about individual liberty. And I don't know. It's something that I think is important, even if you don't agree with everything he says.
It's like he's thrown this wrench into the gears of how things normally work, and he's making everybody stop and think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those conversations are really important to have.
Yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up here, big question for everyone listening at home. Is Chase Oliver going to have an impact on the outcome of the election, whether he means to or not?
$1 million question right there.
I mean, could he tip the scales in a way that nobody expects? Nobody knows. But we will be watching. This is going to be a fascinating election cycle for sure.
I can't wait.